No one saw it coming. The ship that would change the balance of the galaxy didn't arrive in a blaze of glory. It just appeared. Silent, dark, massive. It came from nowhere, its hull black as the void itself, carrying no known insignia, no transponder code, and no traceable origin. It was as if the stars themselves had given birth to a ghost. At first, the galaxy thought it was a trick, a remnant of the old wars, maybe a rogue pirate dreadnought. But when it moved, when its engines flared to life with a strange blue light that didn't match any known technology, the truth became impossible to ignore. This was something new, something powerful, and most frightening of all, something human. Humanity was supposed to be gone. The records were clear. Centuries ago, Earth had fallen silent, its colonies erased, its fleets destroyed in the Great Purges. The Council declared the species extinct, their worlds left as burned husks drifting in forgotten space. Yet here it was, a warship carrying Earth markings, old ones, cracked, faded, but unmistakable. The first to make contact was a patrol ship from the Varn Dominion. They approached cautiously, broadcasting standard peace codes. There was no response, only static. Then, within seconds, their systems went dark. Every sensor, every weapon, every light, dead. Before the crew could even react, the black ship turned, and without firing a shot, their vessel simply vanished. Gone. No debris, no signal. Nothing left but the echo of fear across the comm channels. News spread fast. Fleets gathered. Analysts argued. Some said it was a lost Terran artifact reactivated by time or chance. Others whispered that humanity had survived in the void, waiting, rebuilding, watching. The higher races laughed at the idea. Humans had been weak, reckless, emotional. They could never survive the centuries. But deep down, fear crept through every command room and Senate hall, because everyone knew the truth. If humans had returned, nothing would ever be the same. Then came the message. Short, cold, written in an ancient Earth dialect, transmitted on every frequency across 10 systems. This territory was once ours. It will be again. That was all. No threats, no demands, just a statement of fact. Panic followed. The Council called for emergency meetings. Fleets were redeployed. The races that once ruled humanity's ashes now stood on trembling ground. They remembered the wars, the human tenacity, the madness that had once driven a dying species to fight against impossible odds, and win. Out in the dark, the mysterious warship drifted near a dead star. Its surface bore the scars of ancient battles, yet it gleamed with strange, self-repairing armor. Inside, faint lights flickered across corridors lined with human symbols, flags long thought forgotten. And in the command chamber, a voice finally broke the silence. "Signal the others," it said quietly. "Let them know. We're back." And somewhere, deep in the heart of the galaxy, sensors began to detect movement. One ship became 2, then 10, then hundreds. Humanity had returned, and this time, they were not here to ask for a place among the stars. They were here to take it back. But the question that burned in every mind was the same. Where had they been all this time? And what had they become? The galaxy had always believed itself to be safe. The Council ruled with order, the great empires kept balance, and every trace of the old human wars had been scrubbed from history. To most species, humanity was a warning from the past, a tale told to young cadets about what happens when emotion rules logic. But now, as black silhouettes began appearing across forgotten sectors, that story no longer felt like history. It felt like prophecy. On the edge of the outer rim, listening stations began picking up encrypted transmissions. At first, they were faint, buried in static, but patterns emerged, old Terran codes, the kind used during Earth's final defense centuries ago. The signals carried coordinates to dead systems, worlds long stripped of resources and abandoned to radiation storms. Yet when reconnaissance ships were sent to investigate, they didn't return. Only the silence came back. Within the halls of the Galactic Council, fear took shape behind closed doors. Reports flooded in, outposts gone dark, convoys missing, and strange blue lights sighted along old trade routes. Entire sectors that once thrived under alien control were suddenly off limits. Commanders argued whether to strike or to wait, but every strategist knew the truth. They were already too late to contain it. Whatever was out there had been planning for a long time. Meanwhile, among the human fleet, life was different. These weren't the same humans the galaxy remembered. Centuries hidden beyond the known borders had changed them. Their technology was quiet, efficient, built for endurance, not spectacle. Their ships ran on hybrid cores that merged human design with scavenged alien science. Every vessel bore the mark of survival, patched hulls, scorched plating, and names painted in rough white letters: Endurance, Phoenix, Horizon. Inside one of those ships, a crew sat in the dim light of the command deck, watching as the tactical screen displayed the growing map of reclaimed systems. They didn't celebrate. They didn't cheer. For them, this wasn't revenge. It was something older: duty. A promise passed down from ancestors who refused to die quietly when the galaxy turned its back on Earth. An older officer leaned over the console, eyes locked on the holographic image of a blue-green planet now reduced to ash. "They said we were extinct," he murmured. "Let's remind them what extinction really looks like." But not all humans agreed with the course they were taking. Some remembered the cost of the old wars, the endless cycle of conquest and collapse. Among the fleet's command, quiet doubts began to grow. Were they truly reclaiming what was lost, or repeating the same mistakes that doomed them before? The voices questioning the mission were few, but in the silence of deep space, even whispers could feel like thunder. Still, the fleet advanced. System by system, humanity moved closer toward the core worlds. The black ships left nothing behind but silence and starlight. Across the galaxy, fear turned to desperation. The old masters, the empires that once ruled humanity, were beginning to understand that the species they had buried had not just survived. They had evolved. And somewhere, far from any known chart, the largest of the Terran ships drifted near a cold sun. Its commander stood before a flickering display showing the image of a blue marble, the original Earth, now nothing more than memory. For a long time, they said nothing. Then, with quiet resolve, they whispered, "We're not here to destroy the galaxy. We're here to make it remember." The stars burned silently around them, and the war that would decide the fate of every world was only beginning. Across the galaxy, the rumors became impossible to ignore. Every major power now knew the truth. Humanity had returned, and they were not a myth. But no one could agree on what they wanted. Some claimed the humans were building a new empire. Others whispered of vengeance. The council tried to negotiate, sending envoys with promises of peace, but none came back. The black ships never fired first, yet worlds simply vanished from contact after their arrival. It was as if the humans were erasing history one system at a time. In the war room of the Varn Dominion, the counselors shouted over each other. Holograms of destroyed fleets flickered above the table, vessels vaporized without a trace of energy discharge. "They're using something we've never seen," one admiral said, voice trembling. "Weapons that bypass shields entirely." Another slammed a fist down. "They shouldn't have this kind of power. Humans were primitives." But deep down, they all remembered the same stories: the desperation, the innovation, the way humans had turned scrap and chaos into victory. On the Terran flagship, the Vigilant, a younger officer studied intercepted transmissions from alien networks. His face was calm, but his eyes betrayed unease. "They're terrified of us," he said quietly. "They think we're monsters." The commander beside him gave a small nod. "Good. Fear makes them hesitate." Yet there was no pride in her voice, only a heavy weariness. She had grown up in the colonies beyond the edge of mapped space, raised on tales of Earth's fall and humanity's long exile. She knew what the galaxy had done, but she also knew what revenge could cost. Elsewhere, among the crew, the mood was mixed. Some were eager to push forward, to see the alien worlds that had once enslaved human colonies crumble. Others whispered doubts in the corridors. They wondered if they were becoming the same kind of rulers that once crushed them. The deeper they advanced, the more they saw worlds full of people, not enemies, just survivors. Every destroyed outpost carried refugees. Every silenced planet had its own story. And slowly, unease began to creep into the ranks. Meanwhile, far from the Terran fleet, a small research vessel belonging to the Council made a shocking discovery. Hidden within the ruins of an old human colony, they found fragments of a signal, one originating from deep within the galactic core. It was human, but older than the returning fleet's encryption. Buried inside was a message. Project Dawnfire. Activation complete. No one could decipher what it meant, but one thing was certain. The black ships were not the only remnants of humanity out there. Something else had survived, something older. Back on the Vigilant, the commander stood alone in the viewing deck, staring at the stars. The galaxy she saw was vast and cold, yet somehow smaller now, shrinking beneath the weight of what was coming. Reports from the outer fleets told of strange encounters, rogue human signals, independent ships operating without fleet command. Some attacked both sides, human and alien alike. The return of humanity was no longer a single movement. It was fracturing. And in that growing uncertainty, a quiet fear began to spread, not just through the galaxy, but through humanity itself. Because for the first time since their return, they weren't sure what they were truly fighting for anymore. The stars ahead seemed endless, but somewhere in that darkness, something was waiting, watching. And it wasn't alien. It was human. The stars above the Terran fleet glowed faintly as the ships advanced toward the core. The silence between the stars felt heavier than ever, filled with unspoken questions. Every captain, every soldier, every civilian on board knew they were approaching something monumental. The fleet had grown massive, hundreds of ships moving like shadows across the void. But now, strange signals echoed ahead of them, bouncing off the edges of space, whispering like ghosts through static. The patterns were human, but the fleet hadn't sent them. Commanders gathered in tense briefings, holograms flickering between them. The transmissions matched ancient human codes predating the fleet's founding, codes believed lost with Earth's fall. "If these are ours," one officer said quietly, "then who sent them?" The question hung unanswered. Every instinct screamed that someone or something had been waiting for them. As the Terran Armada entered the Helion Corridor, a region once controlled by the Council, their sensors caught massive energy readings ahead. Entire systems were lighting up as if awakening after centuries of sleep. Old satellite grids turned toward them. Derelict stations powered on. It was like the galaxy itself was stirring. And then, without warning, a signal cut through every frequency. A single word, repeated in a voice that was unmistakably human. "Return." The fleet stopped. Engines fell silent. On the command deck of the Vigilant, tension was thick enough to feel in the air. The voice came again, clearer this time, layered with static but filled with authority. "This is Admiral Wren of Project Dawnfire. Stand down. You're trespassing in restricted Terran territory." The crew exchanged stunned looks. The name didn't exist in their records. No one in the modern fleet had ever heard of such a project. Yet the coordinates attached to the signal pointed straight to the galactic core, where no human ship had ever returned from. The commander ordered a full scan, but before it could complete, every screen went black. Power dipped. Alarms flared across the fleet. One by one, their systems were being overridden, not by an attack, but by access codes carrying human signatures. "They're locking us out," shouted the technician. "They're using Terran authorization keys." The implication hit everyone at once. Someone out there had command codes older than their fleet itself, someone who claimed the right to lead them. Then, from the edge of the sensor field, new contacts appeared. Dozens of massive ships, larger than anything the fleet possessed, emerging from the dark like sleeping giants. Their hulls bore the old Earth insignia, untouched, gleaming, as if time had never touched them. The voice returned, calm and cold. "You've done well to survive, but your mission is over. Humanity's future belongs to us now." On the Vigilant, the commander stood frozen. The crew stared at her, waiting for an order. Every instinct said to fight, but against who? These weren't aliens. These were humans. A lost branch of their own kind, claiming dominion over what the fleet had bled to reclaim. The stars outside pulsed with the glow of charging engines, the space between the two human forces trembling with tension. And as both sides prepared to make their move, the entire galaxy held its breath, waiting for the moment when humanity would finally turn its power against itself and decide who truly ruled the stars. The two fleets hung motionless in space, mirror images of each other, one forged in exile, the other preserved in silence. For a long moment, neither side moved. The void between them was filled only with the low hum of engines and the weight of disbelief. Then, the ancient ships from the core began broadcasting a data stream. The Terran fleet intercepted it instantly, and the contents struck like a shockwave. It wasn't a threat. It was a record, an archive of Earth's final days. The screens flickered with images of humanity's fall, burning skies, collapsing cities, and desperate evacuation orders. But mixed within those transmissions were things no one expected. Footage of massive construction yards buried beneath the planet's crust, whole cities being sealed away before the surface burned. "We didn't die," the voice of Admiral Wren said, echoing through the command decks. "We adapted. We left the galaxy behind and watched it from the dark." The crew on the Vigilant stared in silence. Everything they had been taught, the centuries of stories about extinction, loss, and rebirth, was being rewritten in real time. The original Terran command hadn't been destroyed. They had hidden, waiting for the galaxy to burn itself out. And now, they had returned to claim what they believed was still theirs. But the new humanity, the ones born in exile, who fought their way back from nothing, did not see them as saviors. They saw them as ghosts trying to rewrite history. "They left us to die," one officer muttered under his breath. "And now they want to rule." The commander said nothing. Her eyes stayed locked on the display, watching as more of the ancient fleet came into view. There were hundreds, maybe thousands, emerging from behind the dark veil of the core. Then came the twist no one could have predicted. Deep within the intercepted data, hidden beneath layers of code, the fleet's analysts discovered a transmission not meant for them, but for someone else. It was a signal from Admiral Wren's forces, sent to unknown coordinates far beyond the edge of the galaxy. The message was clear. Phase 2 authorized. Begin transition. "Transition to what?" the commander demanded. But no one could answer. The code was human, yet far more advanced, interlaced with strange patterns that matched no Terran system. The realization came slowly and painfully. They hadn't just been watching the galaxy. They had made contact with something else, something non-human, something powerful enough to change the balance of the universe. Before they could react, the sensors screamed. Space around the core began to distort, rippling like water. Energy signatures spiked beyond measurable limits. From the depths of that distortion, a colossal shape began to emerge. Half mechanical, half unknown. The older Terran ships positioned themselves around it as if guarding a god. The commander's voice was low but steady. "They didn't survive alone," she whispered. They made a deal. Every ship in the fleet braced for what was coming, as reality itself seemed to shudder. The stars dimmed. The black hulls of humanity's fleets gleamed under an eerie light. And for the first time since their return, the exiled humans realized the truth. The greatest threat to the galaxy wasn't alien domination. It was humanity itself, divided by time, ideology, and something far beyond their understanding. The core flared, the signal pulsed one last time, and across every channel came the chilling words, "The new age of humanity begins now." The distortion near the galactic core tore wider, releasing a blinding surge of light. The younger Terran fleet held position, their shields flaring under the pressure. Through the chaos, the colossal shape fully emerged, a structure larger than any ship, its surface shifting like liquid metal. It wasn't a vessel, it was a machine, ancient and alive. The older Terrans called it the Dawn Engine, and from the way their ships moved around it, it was clear they meant to use it. The commander of the Vigilant stared at the readings flooding her console. The energy output was beyond anything humanity had ever built. "If they activate that thing," said her second officer, "it could rewrite space itself." The truth hit her instantly. That was what transition meant. The older Terrans weren't planning to conquer the galaxy. They were planning to rebuild it, to erase and remake it under their control. Across the fleet, voices crackled through the comms, officers arguing whether to stand down or attack. Some believed the ancient Terrans were right, that humanity needed order after centuries of chaos. Others saw it as the ultimate betrayal, a surrender of everything they had fought to reclaim. The commander listened in silence until the noise became unbearable. Then she gave the order. "Target the Dawn Engine." The younger Terran ships roared to life, engines flaring as missiles streaked toward the core. The ancient fleet responded instantly, their counterfire slicing through the void. Blue energy tore across the battlefield, lighting up the stars. Human fought human, brother against brother, as the galaxy's oldest war began again. Only this time, there were no aliens to blame. The Vigilant charged forward through the storm, shields burning under the impact. The commander could see the Dawn Engine pulsing brighter, drawing power from the core's gravity itself. "If that thing reaches full charge," her technician warned, "it'll tear this entire region apart." But she didn't flinch. "Then we end it before it starts." The Vigilant broke through enemy lines, systems screaming, hull cracked and glowing red. As they closed in, a communication signal cut through the chaos. The voice of Admiral Wren filled the bridge. "You don't understand," he said, almost pleading. "This machine isn't destruction. It's salvation. The galaxy's dying. The core's collapsing. The Dawn Engine is meant to move us to another universe." The commander froze. Could it be true? Were the readings wrong all along? Her crew looked to her, waiting for a choice that would decide the fate of every living being. For a moment, doubt flickered in her mind. But then she remembered the message that started it all, the promise of reclaiming humanity's home, not escaping it. She whispered, "We don't run anymore." With one final push, the Vigilant launched its entire payload into the Dawn Engine's heart. The explosion rippled across space, a silent burst of light brighter than any sun. The ancient fleet scattered, their formation breaking as the machine fractured. For a second, everything went still. Then the impossible happened. The light reversed, collapsing inward. Instead of destroying the Vigilant, it pulled the ship into itself. The bridge filled with white as reality folded around them. When the light faded, the commander opened her eyes. Outside the window wasn't the core or the battlefield. It was blue sky, oceans, clouds, earth. Somehow, impossibly, they had returned to the home no one believed still existed. But on the horizon, hovering in the atmosphere, she saw it, a single dark silhouette of an ancient Terran ship waiting. And in that moment she realized the war wasn't over. It had just followed them home. The light faded slowly, leaving only the soft hum of the Vigilant's surviving systems. The crew sat frozen, unable to process what they were seeing. Blue oceans stretched beneath them, white clouds drifting lazily across the curve of a living world. Sensors confirmed the impossible. Oxygen-rich atmosphere, human-compatible biosphere, and a familiar magnetic field. It wasn't a simulation. It wasn't a memory. It was Earth. The real one. Somehow, after centuries of wandering, they were home. No one spoke for a long time. The bridge lights flickered, the ship groaning as it stabilized in orbit. The commander stepped toward the viewport, her reflection faint in the glass. "We made it," she whispered. The words didn't sound triumphant. They sounded fragile, like a prayer said too late. The Earth below looked alive, untouched, green again. But there were no city lights, no orbiting stations, no signs of civilization. It was as if humanity had never been here at all. Then the sensors caught movement. The dark shape that hovered above the clouds began to descend. It was the same ship she had seen before, the old Terran warship, silent and massive. A transmission broke through the static. "You destroyed the Dawn engine," said Admiral Wren's voice, steady but quieter now. "You ended the one thing that could have saved us all." The commander replied calmly, "Saved who? You wanted to abandon everything we fought to remember." Wren sighed, and for the first time, his voice carried something human. Regret. The galaxy's core was collapsing. It wasn't a war we could win. The Dawn engine wasn't meant to control the galaxy. It was meant to take humanity somewhere safe, beyond the end. The crew exchanged uncertain glances. If he was telling the truth, then their victory had doomed everyone still out there. But before the weight of that could sink in, the commander looked out the viewport again. The Earth below shimmered faintly, as though light rippled across its surface. Readings showed energy signatures, familiar ones. "He's wrong," she said slowly. "It didn't destroy the Dawn engine. It completed it." Outside, the sky rippled, revealing hundreds of small lights descending through the atmosphere, escape pods, supply modules, and fragments of ships. The commander realized what was happening. The Vigilant hadn't been pulled to the old Earth. It had been pulled to a restored one. Somehow, in destroying the Dawn engine, they had triggered its backup function, to rebuild the home humanity had lost. She turned to her crew. "We didn't run. We rebuilt." Wren's ship lingered a moment longer before slowly turning away, vanishing into the clouds without another word. Whether he accepted what had happened or was retreating to plan something else, no one knew. But for the first time in centuries, the human race had a world beneath its feet again. The commander stood at the viewport as dawn broke over the horizon. "Tell the fleet," she said quietly. "We're home. But this time we build something worth keeping." As the first rays of sunlight touched the ship's hull, the planet below glowed with promise. Humanity had come full circle, from extinction to rebirth. The galaxy had forgotten its old masters, but now it would learn the truth that echoed through every human heart across the stars. No matter how far they were cast into the dark, humanity always finds its way home.